Hello everyone, this is me, SHUWETA, back again with another podcast of ours where we have invited students from Law School to dive into some criminal law. We have two speakers for today, AMIRAH, hi, and SANGHITA. We will conduct 2 episodes for Criminal Law Uncovered podcast. In today's episode, we are diving into abduction laws in Malaysia. Now, let's begin with our first speaker, AMIRAH, about the law itself.
Thanks, SHUWETA. So under section 362 of the Penal Code says that if someone is forced or tricked into leaving a place, that's considered abduction. Now, there are 2 main ways abduction can happen under this section. First, by force. This is the more obvious method as it involves physically forcing someone to leave a place. Think of it like dragging or pushing someone to make them go somewhere against their will. That's considered physical compulsion. Second, by deceitful means. This is when someone uses tricky, lies or false promises to convince someone to leave a place. So even if there's no physical force involved, the use of deception still makes it abduction. So in simple terms, if a person is made to leave a place unwillingly, whether it's by being physically forced or missed through lie, it qualifies as abduction under Malaysian law.
Alright, let's look at a real case where this case was applied. Wahab bin Osman vs PP, right?
Yeah, sure. On 1 November 1995, the accused along with 2 offenders abducted a woman and forced her into a car. He drove to Sungai Tong. During the journey, he threatened to kill her if she didn't marry him. She refused. He threatened her again and again. She refused. The case was later appealed and the charge was framed under section 366 of Penal Code, which cover kidnapping and abduction a woman to compel her marriage. The accused was sentenced to 5 years and 5 years imprisonment.
Let's see, why did the court uphold that sentence?
The appeal judge stated clearly that marriage preparation was necessary to prove intention. Once the intention to compel marriage is established, the offence is complete or lengkap in Malay, even though the woman refused to marry him in force and the act of abduction itself is sufficient to satisfy the legal requirements under section 366. The accused claimed that they had slept together and had intercourse could not be proven, and this further damaged the victim's dignity.
You know that the court really emphasized public policy here. They made it clear that abduction, especially when it involves using force against a woman, is a serious crime. It doesn't just harm the victim emotionally or physically, it also affects her family's dignity and reputation, which is a big deal in many communities. In one particular case, the court felt that a 5-year prison sentence was fair because of the social impact of the crime. It wasn't just about punishing the act, it was about sending a message. They also referred to a case called Badulananda Jayatilaka against PP, which basically says, look, appeal courts don't change sentences lightly. Unless there's a really serious mistake, the original sentence usually stands. So, to sum it up, the prosecution had to prove 2 main things. First, that the woman was abducted, and the second, that it was done with the intention to force her to marry the accused. Once the intention was clear, the crime was considered complete, and even if the marriage never actually happened.
Alright, that wraps up part 1 of our series. Today, we learned what constitutes abduction under section 362, the difference between force and deceit, punishment, and how it applies in Malaysian cases. In our next episode, we look at how abduction differs from kidnapping and explore more recent cases. Until then, I'm SHUWETA signing off, and this is Criminal Law Uncovered. See you! Welcome back to Criminal Law Uncovered episode 2. I'm SHUWETA, and today we have different speakers. JESSRINA.
Hello.
And AFIZA. Flashback on episode 1, we have discussed the definition of abduction and a key case, Wahab bin Osman vs PP. Today, we'll be examining aggravated abduction along with recent legal development, including a 2025 Court of Appeal case.
Okay, so first of all, let's begin by examining the legal framework concerning aggravated forms of abduction under the Penal Code. Okay, so basically in section 364 of the Penal Code, it deals with abduction or kidnapping committed with the intention of murder. Moving on to section 365, this provision criminalizes abduction with the intent to wrongfully or secretly confine a person. Okay, then we have section 366, in which it specifically addresses the abduction of a woman with the intention that she may be compelled into marriage, subjected to illicit intercourse, or forced into prostitution. And then we have section 367, the focus shifts to abduction with the intent to subject the victim to grievous hurt, slavery, or what is referred to unnatural lust. And then we have Section 369, which addresses the kidnapping or abduction of a child under the age of 10 with the intent to steal movable property from the child. So each of these provisions reflects the seriousness which the law views acts of abduction, particularly where there is malicious intent or harm involved.
Let's pause for a second to clarify what this section means in real life terms.
Okay, so basically in simple terms, Section 364 isn't about harming someone, it's about killing them after kidnapping. That's why the death penalty is an option. And then we have Section 365. It recognizes that confinement in secret, even without violence, can be psychologically and physically harmful. And then we have Section 366, which targets gender-based crimes where women are forced into marriage or sex. And then Section 367 criminalizes abductions for torture, exploitation, and any form of abuse. And lastly, Section 369 focuses on children, particularly when the abduction is to steal from them, like taking jewelry or any valuables. That's how this goes.
Miss AFIZA, what do you think about the punishments?
You know, the law takes abduction really seriously. Some cases don't just lead to prison, they even include whipping. That's how serious it gets. For example, under Section 364, you can get the death penalty or up to 30 years plus whipping. Section 365, up to 7 years and a fine. Section 366 and 367, up to 10 years and a fine. And Section 369, that's up to 7 years and a fine too. These punishments are not just about punishing, they are about protecting people from the worst, death, trafficking, and lifelong trauma. That's why I'm speaking up. We need to keep raising awareness and stand against abduction.
What are your thoughts about the case of Kwak Yong Lai and others as a public prosecutor? What do you think about it?
This case is more than just a court decision. It's a reminder of how real and dangerous abduction is. A 10-year-old boy taken from his tuition center, held in a house and used to demand 1.75 million ringgit from his family. We cannot stay silent. Abduction can happen anywhere and no one is truly safe unless we all take action. This is why we are campaigning to raise awareness, to educate and to push for safer environments for our children. Look out for suspicious activity, report it, talk to your family and friends. The more we speak up, the harder is it for abduction to get away. Abduction is a crime and together we can fight it. Let's build a community where safety comes first. Awareness on abduction starts now and is never too late. Have a look at our website for more information regarding abduction.
Alright, that brings us to the end of episode 2. We have now seen how intention turns abduction into a far more serious offence and how Malaysia's laws respond with serious consequences. We also looked at the recent Kwak Yong Lai case, which highlighted the gravity of child abduction for ransom. Thanks for joining us with this 2-part series on criminal law uncovered. This is SHUWETA signing off. Until next time, see you!